For the Superbike Ultimate Street Bike Finals, we were back at Long Marston again. This time as part of a full drag racing programme organised by the National Drag Racing Association. On Saturday, it was a chance for the Ultimate Street Bike runners to qualify for one of the 16 places in the final to be run in eliminations on Sunday. But it was also a chance for the competitors to run for the fastest quarter-mile time and highest terminal speed of the weekend. Terry Martin was off to a tremendous start on his GS 1150E with a run of 9.84 at 147 miles per hour. That was certainly going to put him in contention for all the awards. Martin Peck, regarded by many as the top nitrous contender in the country, was showing that he was going to be a threat tomorrow with this run at 10.2 at 144 miles per hour. Nigel Hatton on the mighty Cosman Kawasaki was running well until three-quarter distance when trouble struck. Unfortunately, we didn't see Nigel again on Saturday, his hopes of qualifying over. In the battle for supremacy in the two-stroke twin class, Dave Martin on his 430cc RD Yamaha was turning times in the 11s. Not far behind was Rod Young on his RD 370 with a 12.14 at 110 miles per hour. In the two-stroke open, it was that dynamic duo of Bill Colcutt and John Kuhn on their 750 triples, seemingly trying harder than usual, if that's possible. In the four-stroke twins, Graham Wolfe on his Formula 1 Ducati was running in the 12s just about every time out, including this run, where his opponent looked a little weighed down by the size of his nitrous bottle on the back. Ian Toms was not running quite to his true form, with a lowly 11.1 at 135 miles per hour on this outing. Col Rule, a once keen Ultimate Street Bike contender. He's now moved up to the Pro Stock class, where wheelie bars are allowed. The result? Times are better by nearly half a second over the quarter. Good luck to Col next season. Talking of Pro Stock competitors, Alan Wilde on his Dymo Suzuki put in some quick passes, as did Len Paggott on his 1260cc Suzuki. This run almost come into grief on the Armco barriers. Back with the Ultimate Street Bike competitors. Steve Burns on his Turbo GSX Suzuki was off to another scorching pass, which ended with a time of 9.81 at 145 miles per hour. Ron Russell, whom we mentioned at Cranfield, was departing from the line as quickly as ever. He was going to make sure of a final 16 place. John Messenger had posted a 9.66 on his Suzuki, while Tracy Martin was still managing to run in the 9s, despite fighting traction problems on his Saxon Suzuki Turbo. We asked him if the finals could be the place for outright victory.
Well, at the last meeting I would have said certainly. The bike's going as good as it's ever been with its new turbo system. That's my best time to date. But unfortunately, today I've had severe trouble with grip due to the bad weather conditions. I've shortened the wheelbase, softened the suspension, but it's still blowing away the rear tyre in every gear. So the way things are going, I think John Messenger's got it sewing up at the moment.
Owen Lewis baffled us all by turning out on a GSX 1100E, instead of the familiar green and white Z750 Turbo Kawasaki we're used to seeing sporting the Jersey plate. Gary Kennedy was showing that he would have to be watched tomorrow, here running a 10.27 at 136 miles per hour on his GSX 1100R Suzuki. Sadly not making the final 16, Dave Ennis on his Z1B Kawasaki, apparently hitting problems. With a couple of people dropping out on the Saturday, Graham Dance, originally a reserve, found himself in the final 16 with an 11.73 at 128 miles per hour. Ending Saturday on rather a sour note, this was the last time we were to see Stuart Hellier's Yamaha FJ 1382 in action. For on the Saturday evening, it was to vanish without trace. I'm sure Stuart would appreciate any information which led to its recovery. Sunday was slow to get underway after heavy overnight rain. In fact, it was afternoon before we saw any drag action. Just before the Ultimate Street Bike Finals commenced, we saw Kevin Marshall on his 1220 Kawasaki in the competition class, and Ian Lyle on another Kawasaki, this time in the Super Street class, both posting very quick runs. The signs were good, the strip was dry. A man plagued with problems this year. Ken Taylor on his GSX 1100. With this run yesterday, he tied for the highest terminal of 147 miles per hour with Terry Martin. How did he rate his chances in the final today?
Well, the motor was running really strong yesterday, and the only real problems we had was traction. So we've shortened up the bike, and providing that the weather holds, I think we could have a good chance. The motor's definitely still got more in hand, and like it says, if conditions hold, I think we'll be there.
The final began with high drama. Ken Taylor, one of the favourites for the title, was to go out by a narrow margin to Richard Prosser on his GPZ 1100. Even more of a surprise was in store in the next eliminator. Wee Scotsman Ron Russell getting the jump on Bill Hunter and holding on to take victory at the line. Wayne Schreier on his nitrous-injected GPZ 1100 lined up against the Katana of Alan McTaggart. This time there were no doubts about the winner. Wayne was through to the final 8. Back at the line, Steve Burns was paired against Gary Kenley on his GSX 1100R. The result was to be one of the closest of the eliminations, just favouring Gary Kenley. Another top name had fallen by the wayside. Tony Arnold and Andy Seagust were next. Despite the wheelie and loss of time, Tony was to charge at mid to top end and scoop victory on his GSX 1100. Tracy Martin on his Saxon Suzuki, now sporting its new paintwork for the final, looked like losing out to Graham Dance on his Katana. But a strong top-end surge by Tracy saw him to the line. Martin Peck had a bar run in his first round run, but had to push his Suzuki across the line to qualify. John Messenger had an easy victory in his first round run, dispensing with Chris Hall, who had problems. And it's with John Boy Messenger we start the second round. Running against Ron Russell, he was not taking any chances and posted the first 9-second run of the eliminations with a 9.94 at 140 miles per hour. The two nitrous flyers, Wayne Schreier and Richard Prosser on their GPZs, were closely matched, but Wayne took the win with a 10.56 at 135 miles per hour. Next to run was Tony Arnold. He was against Gary Kenley, who had disposed of Steve Burns earlier. But Tony, with no wheelies this time, set about the task at hand and won with a 10.05 at 142 miles per hour. Tracy Martin and Martin Peck were next to go. Tracy was away quickest, but with wheel spin slowing him. Martin Peck's nitrous-injected Suzuki GSX 1100E soon overhauled the deficit and head on to the top, with a 10.45 at 142 miles per hour. In the semis draw, we were to see John Messenger against Wayne Schreier, and in the other semi, we were to see Tony Arnold against Martin Peck. After being knocked out in the first round of eliminations, Bill Hunter had set his sights on another prize, that for the highest terminal speed of the weekend, and with success. Using a borrowed engine, he ran 9.79 at 149 miles per hour. Others with similar ideas to Bill included Steve Burns and Ken Taylor. Top fuel bikes are becoming quite a rarity at drag strips these days. One of the most competitive fuelers at the moment is LA Hooker, piloted by Rod Pallant. With a full 150-yard rolling burnout, were we to see the first 200 miles per hour terminal? The crowd stood poised, fingers in ears, Rod launching hard, but having to back off a little when things got a bit out of shape. The run, not quick by Rod's standards, at least gave us a chance to see a top fueler in action at Long Marston. Back to the semis, and light now fading rapidly. We saw Wayne Schreier and John Boy Messenger line up. It was John Boy all the way with another 9-second run. The second semi saw Martin Peck near side against Tony Arnold far side, who fouled on the line and got a red light, consequently letting in Martin with a 10.45 at 142 miles per hour. But as you can see, Tony wasn't happy about his costly mistake on the line. So the final was to be between John Boy Messenger and Martin Peck, both on Suzukis and both running without the aid of a turbo. While we waited for the final, we saw Ken Taylor making one last run. But with darkness upon us and dampness forming on the track, all Ken managed was to spin the rear wheel in every gear. Steve Burns was to post another 10-second run before calling it a day and loading the Suzuki into the pickup in readiness for the bike show. When the final came, it was in pitch darkness, with John Boy Messenger clinching victory for Martin Peck with a 10.27 at 137 miles per hour. John, along with his Ultimate Streetbike 1987 title, picked up the fastest ET of the weekend, a 9.66, which I believe is also the quickest of the whole series. With Superbike magazine's Ultimate Streetbike series drawing to a close for another year, we've looked at the classes, we've looked at the top names. But that's not all that makes the Ultimate Streetbike series what it is. It's the atmosphere of the drag strip, the personal challenge, and most of all, it's being part of this great fun event. Oh, and if you get through rear tyres like Bill Hunter, it's also making sure you get Metzler's sponsorship next year.